Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. So I'm about a month late talking about this one, but I wanted to make sure I had all the documents and kind of knew what I'd be talking about. So what's happened is a bunch of soldiers have been arrested in Quebec with charges of terrorism planning and also possession of night vision. And I've been getting a lot of questions, and most of them have actually been about the night vision. People have said, hey, is it actually illegal to have night vision in Canada? And I can tell you the answer is no, with an asterisk, and I'll explain. However, full disclosure, I always disclose when something is sponsored, and this video is sponsored by Op4 Night Solutions, who make night vision and sell it. And as part of my sort of disclosure, I will note that the terms of this sponsorship was that they were like, can you make a couple of videos that talk about night vision? And say whatever you want. So I'm not like limited to saying only nice things or whatever. So let's talk about this case because it's kind of interesting. So first we're going to look at a Globe and Mail article, and I'm going to link it in the description below so that you can check it out because I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. But basically they note some of the kinds of tactical gear that the RCMP alleges was in the hands of soldiers arrested in Quebec is highly restricted and is generally inaccessible to individuals. So 4 men were charged, and this is kind of interesting because there's 3 people charged together and then 1 person charged separately, and we'll talk about that because it probably indicates that that 4th person is in a very different position. But one of the issues is that accusations that he procured American-made night vision devices and a laser aiming pointer. Now, when they say laser aiming pointer, I think they mean like laser targeting system as opposed to like just a pointer that you'd use in like an office or for like a PowerPoint presentation. All 3 items were manufactured by L3 Harris Technologies, a Florida-based defense company. And Op4 is actually quoted here. Ziming Wan is quoted as saying, it'd be very difficult to obtain a BNVD fused legally in Canada, even as a current or former service member. They can only be obtained by Canadian government agencies, not individuals, said Mr. Wan, owner of Op4 Night Solutions. And they note here, night vision goggles and laser targeting devices are routinely bought and sold by gun enthusiasts. Okay, so if you can buy night vision, and you can, because here is some video of me wearing night vision, and you can see that it's actually kind of cool. This was sent to me by Op4, and you can see that it is basically a superpower. I also pulled out my cell phone to record some cell phone video footage at the same time, thinking that I could do like a comparison. And then I realized that it wasn't super useful because this was filmed out at my rural property, which is away from cities. It's away from light pollution. And it was filmed on a mostly moonless night. So in fact, the comparison video is just a black screen. Like if I took the night vision off, I just could not see anything, even after sort of giving my eyes a little bit of time to acclimate. But with it on, I could wander around. So this set is legal. Why is this set that these guys had not legal? Well, Canada has some regulations around that, and the critical section is from the Defense Production Act. And so you might be saying, wait a minute, I've never heard of this one. Well, most people haven't because it doesn't come up all that often. But Defense Production Act has this section here, which is the section that they've been charged under. No person shall, unless the person is registered under Section 38, which is like you're a military group or something like that, or exempt from registration under Section 39 or 39.1, knowingly examine, you can't even look at it, or possess a controlled good or transfer a controlled good to another person. So in Canada, Gen 3 night vision is a controlled good. The set that I'm wearing in the little video snippet that I had there is Gen 2, which is not as good, but it's still pretty cool, I gotta say. So you might be wondering, well, what are the penalties for if you violate this? Well, every person who contravenes Section 37 is guilty of either A, an offense punishable on summary conviction and liable to a fine not exceeding $100,000, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or to both, or B, an indictable offense, and now the choice of whether to proceed summarily or by indictment is in the hands of the government. The government gets to decide here. And given how angry they are with these folks, I suspect they're going to proceed by indictment. Or an indictable offense and liable to a fine not exceeding $2 million, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years, or to both. So that is a fair chunk of money, and 10 years is a fair chunk of time. I don't think they're going to get the full 10 years for that specific offense, but it's still, I think they're looking at some serious time. Now, I mentioned that these were charged in two separate sort of charging documents, so we're going to look at them in turn. And these documents, because it's Quebec, the documents are en français. So I am going to show you the documents, and I may read them en français sometimes, but I will provide translations because most of you are English speakers. So here we go. So we've got here province of Quebec, and we've got Marc Aurel, I think it's Aurel, Chabot, Simon Angers-Audet, and Raphael Lagasse. All good Quebecois names. So now all of this is in, in French, but they say this one is between the 1st of June 2021 and the 10th of January 2024 in Quebec did contravene the section 83.19 of the Criminal Code, which is terrorism. It's terrorism. So now this is interesting because when you see 2021, what this tells us is that these guys have been on the police's radar since 2021, and they've probably been being watched and monitored for that time. So we'll have to see, but I'm betting there's a whole pile of information. Now, if you're used to US charging documents, American charging documents, one of the things you will note here is that there is no story. They don't tell us any of the details. In the US, they have to provide, or at least in most places in the US, they provide like a bit of a narrative. Here's what happened. Here's how we discovered it. We don't do any of that in Canada. It's just, we keep it all hush hush. Because Canada is really, really stingy on information. We say we have open courts, but they're not really that open. So for Marc Aurel Chabot, so January 10th, 2024, did contravene storage laws. That would have been when he was arrested. And basically, so they're saying he had guns that were not properly stored. They were violating the storage regulations. They say he had 5 chargeurs à capacité prohibée, which means he had 5 magazines that were over capacity. In this case, 30 rounds of 5.56. So if you're American, you're probably saying, wait a minute, it's illegal in Canada to have a 30-round magazine? Yes, these would probably be AR mags, and you can't have them over 5 in Canada. And then January 10th, 2024, in Quebec, did possess 9 grenades. Grenade fumigène militaire. So you might be saying, wait a minute, he had grenades? There's smoke grenades. He had military smoke grenades. So it's concerning, but it's not as concerning as like regular grenades, which would be a little bit more... there's a difference in spice level. We'll just put it that way. Smoke grenades are mild, and regular grenades would be kind of extra spicy. And then also January 10th, they're saying he had a laser system, L3 Harris, and that it had a defaced serial number. Interesting. So those are his charges. Simon Angers-Audet, I think. I might probably mispronouncing that. They're saying he had 5 firearms improperly stored, so as well as 18 overcapacity magazines, 30-round magazines, 2 smoke grenades, and yeah, and 1 military signaling grenade, a flare grenade. Okay, or 1 military flare. All right. And then for Rafael Lagas, they're saying he had 50 guns improperly stored, so stored contrary to regulations, that he had 47 magazines that are over capacity. And this one is interesting because the others, they specified exactly what the the capacity was and the caliber, but for him they just say chargeur à capacité prohibée. They just say overcapacity magazines. So I don't know whether these are overcapacity magazines. It's probably a mix because they say that there were both. They say that they had, both handguns and rifles. So I'm guessing there were probably like some Glock mags and so forth there. I've seen news articles saying that they had some Glocks. So yeah. And also had a laser system, and also he's charged with possession of night vision, 3rd generation, and they list the serial numbers, and the serial numbers are different for the left tube and the right tube, so he's charged with that. Okay, so that's them, and they're in a fair chunk of trouble. But all 3 of them together are charged with sort of the terrorism offense, so all of them are facing that. But then we have the additional guy. And the additional guy is Mr. Matthew Forbes. And so he is facing charges. I'm just going to pull it up a little downwards because I see that I forgot to redact out his address. And my understanding is that Mr. Forbes got bail, whereas the other ones did not. So you can see here he's got a little bit less of a level of seriousness here, and we can sort of talk about that. So January 10th, 2 firearms improperly stored is the allegation. They say that he possessed a firearm without having a license for it, and that is a CZ Bren 2 in 5.56. Now, I suspect if he didn't have a license at all, then this would be just that. But it might also be that he might have gotten charged because this one is newly prohibited. So I don't know, but we'll figure this one out later. He was also charged with possession of a Glock 17 without having a license. So that's also interesting. Why does he not have a license and he's got a Glock 17? He's got 8 overcapacity magazines for 5.56 at 30 rounds, which would be, probably AR mags. He's got 1 smoke grenade, 1 military smoke grenade. He's in possession of controlled products, that being night vision goggles, and they once again give the serial numbers. And the interesting thing, at least it was interesting to me, is that they give the serial numbers for the left tube and the right tube, and they're different serial numbers. So there's at least a second set of night vision goggles here. And then also January 10th, they have a laser targeting system, Attila 200, which he's not allowed to have, and they say no inscription. Okay, but it's got a serial number 4105. They have controlled night vision, and this is a charge of transferring to 2 people controlled night vision. So they say that he sold night vision illegally. Again, this would be 3rd generation night vision. The next charge here is with respect to transferring to one other person a system or a laser targeting system from L3 Harris. And so they say that he transferred that. And they say that was in June of 2023. They say the other was in May 2023. They have September 2023 that he offered to transfer firearms when he was not allowed to. So this is a weapons trafficking charge. offert de céder de munitions. So they're saying he was offering to transfer firearms. He was offering to sell guns illegally. And then September 24th, again, a night vision set. And this is a PVS 14. And they give the serial number. So, and they say that he transferred this to one person. So all of this is really interesting. Now, it is interesting that he is not alleged to be part of the terrorism stuff. And it looks like when we look at the dates, they only seem to get on to him in 2023, but they say that the others go back as far as 2021. So it's not really clear how they got onto this. I see two possibilities here, and we'll have to find that out later. Possibility number one is that they have a guy who is trying to sell stuff, and often that's how these things come to the attention of police. Like if you go on Facebook Marketplace and you're like, I have night vision, it is entirely possible that an RCMP member will contact you and be like, hey, what generation is that? And then they might get real interested. But it's also possible that they became aware of these sort of guys who were sort of wannabe extremists, wannabe terrorist types, and then were following them and saying, okay, we're going to watch them. And then they went, wait, where are these guys getting their stuff? They've got some cool gear. And then backtracking that. I don't know which direction it went. So that's kind of an interesting question, but we'll have to see. Now you might be saying, what kind of extremism are some Quebecois getting up to? Well, it's reported that this was sort of like Quebec nationalism stuff. That they're like, hey, we're going to fight for an independent Quebec. They were apparently planning on forcibly taking land in the Quebec City area. I have no idea yet what is going on, but those are sort of the reported allegations. Now, if you're wanting to buy night vision legally in Canada, of course, I'm, pretty much obligated to say, hey, Op4 Night Solutions sells night vision, and you can buy it there legally. Stay away from like Facebook Marketplace and so forth. If somebody's selling a used set, there might be a reason why they want to get rid of it. And B, you don't really want to mess around. Anybody who's smuggling this stuff from the US is really creating a whole wrinkle. And you might say, well, it's not a big deal. They're the ones smuggling it. They're the ones at risk. But the law actually says that you can't even examine it. Like, you can't even really have a good look at it, let alone possess it. So the legal set that I have is fully legal. Like, otherwise I wouldn't be doing a video where you can see me walking around wearing the stuff. But be careful, right? And, the US has ITAR. Canada has basically decided to recognize the US's restrictions on export of goods because, of course, we are in a close relationship with the US. I mean, it's maybe not as close as it once was, but it's still fairly close. And so that is, the US doesn't want the third generation stuff sort of getting out and becoming common. So they restrict export and they restrict what Canadians are allowed to do with it. Now, I should note the no third gen stuff applies to US made products. There are third gen products being made by China and so forth, and those are not controlled, but they're also not as good. The US really makes the best stuff here. I would love to see Canada added to like an approved countries list where, the US is like, okay, Canadians are cool. Maybe we've got some funny accents, and maybe we sometimes speak en français, and maybe sometimes we, all of these things. Maybe our gun policies are not as open, but yeah, it would be nice if they'd be like, hey, Canadians can get this cool stuff too. And as soon as they can, it'll be available through legal means. But don't bring the illegal stuff to any sort of, event or anything like that. A lot of this stuff is popular both with the airsoft community and the firearm community. If people are doing night shoots and that kind of thing, I have yet to do a night shoot, but I totally want to because this is super cool. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions. If I'm going to be doing some other sort of discussion of night vision and so forth, partially because like I agreed to, but partially just because it's cool and I kind of want to talk about it. So there's going to be video discussions of it just because I want to. And yeah, I've sort of agreed to do 2 videos. I know I'm going to end up doing more than that because it's just a lot of fun. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this to be interesting or educational. A lot of people had questions about this one, so now you can sort of see what they've been charged with. We'll have to wait for more details to sort of discuss or to see the full discussion of what exactly the allegations are. But yeah, a lot of people were like, wait a minute, does this mean night vision is illegal? No. You can own a set, and maybe you should because they're cool. All right, so thank you so much. As I said, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. There's a link for if you want to support that method on just below. But at the $50 level, Bottle Shock and Oz, Canada's National Firearms Association, the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, PJ's Forever, Angela Skelton, Cielo, Kyle Fox, Purple Dragonair, Shay B, Shay B, and at the $20 level, Marvin CZ, Andrew Elsich, Cameron Johnson, Drunk All of the Baileys, Larry Kalniak, Lindsay Metcalf, and Mark. Thank you as well to the $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.